Hi there, welcome to another edition of Yoga with Anne. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be playing with some balance, so balancing poses where you're actually standing on one leg and then just working to really bring balance into our bodies. So if our bodies feel balanced, it helps us to calm our minds. So right now that's something really important that we need right now, that we need to remember to honor for sure, that maybe we just stop and be still and connect with our breath to bring balance, to help bring calm. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. If you're taking this class the day I posted or a few days after, then you know it's pre-election, and I'm not going to get into details because we all have our feelings, what's happening with the pandemic, all kinds of stuff. We've got a lot of stuff going on. So be sure to honor yourself and really honor what you need. And if it's to do yoga, you do yoga. If it's to watch Netflix or eat cheese or have a glass of wine or eat chocolate, whatever it is that you need to do, go for a walk. Just really honor what you need and really be kind and take care of yourself. If you're taking this, in January of 2021, you still need to honor yourself and take care of yourself. Whatever's happening in your life, whatever's happening in the world, we always have chaos going on. And so see if you can find peace in the moment. And that could just be with taking a moment to close your eyes, to connect with your breath, just feeling your inhales and your exhales. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Today you will need a blanket or a towel. If you have yoga blocks, have yoga blocks. If you have two, great. If you have one, great. If you have none, that's okay too. I'll teach around them. But those are the props that you'll need today for our practice. Go ahead and make your way onto your mat. I'd like to read something to you to start class today. So you can either be seated or lying down. Do know that we're going to start in a reclined position. So constructive rest where you're lying on your back with your knees bent and your feet on the mat is a nice way to start. I always start with a blanket under my head as a pillow. So if you'd like to start that way, you're welcome to as well. So go ahead and make your way onto your mat. And as you arrive on your mat, just take a moment to check in with your breath. Notice how you're feeling right now. If you need to make little movements here, for me, typically when I lie down in constructive rest, before making any movements, my body needs a little adjustment. So you might find that hugging your knees in and rocking, you may find you could step your feet as wide as your mat and do that windshield wipering where you move your knees to one side and then the other. If you know pelvic tilt, you can do pelvic tilt. If there's something else that would help you to connect with your mat, with the earth better or more well, then please do that. And then as you feel ready, you'll come to stillness, to that idea of calm, to peace in the moment. Even if you feel there's lots of chaos, it could be physical chaos, right? Depending on what your room looks like, where you're practicing. It could be chaos outside of your room, outside of your house, in your house, wherever you are. Just come to your breath, to that beautiful movement in your body. It's nurturing you. I'm going to read you an excerpt from a book called The Secret Power of Yoga, and it's translations of the Yoga Sutras, which are ancient yoga philosophy. This is 1.33 if you're interested in looking it up. There are many translations. To preserve openness of heart and calmness of mind. Nurture these attitudes. Kindness to those who are happy. Compassion for those who are less fortunate. Honor for those who embody noble qualities. Equanimity to those whose actions oppose your values. Here we are offered 4 priceless keys that, if used in conjunction with the correct locks, open portals that enable us to retain our inner peace in all circumstances. The greatest challenge is to remember that we hold the keys to our own peace. So sitting with that or lying down with that for a few moments, I'm going to move back onto my mat. As you keep that connection with your breath, feel your body expand as you inhale. And feel your body contract as you exhale. As you exhale, can you release something you're holding on to, something that's no longer serving you, a distraction? Let's bring our knees into our chest. And you could just be still here. Maybe you want to rock. You could have your knees wide and kind of rotate to one side and the other. Maybe your feet, toes, ankles need a little movement and love. Really whatever would feel good here. And if it's just better to stay in constructive rest, you stay there. Or just keeping your knees hugged in without any movement. You can just connect with that movement of your breath. We're going to come into a recline twist. So there's a couple of ways you can come into it. You could bring your feet back to your mat and then just let your knees move over to the right. You also have the option of your knees hugged in and move over to the right. So check in with what's best for your body. We want our knees and legs to come down onto the mat or the floor. So if you need some support, whether putting a blanket or a block under your knees, between your knees, and then your upper body is opening up toward the ceiling and out to the left. For some of you, your left shoulder is not going to connect with the mat. So if it's hovering, I believe that that's okay as long as it's not causing discomfort or pain. If it's too much, then you can bring your hand onto your chest or your hip. You could even roll more into the fetal position. So check in there. Next inhale, let's bring your knees back up. If you're working with your feet on the mat, have your feet on the mat and adjust. And then let's exhale and move the knees over to the left. And then opening your heart, your chest, depending on what your capabilities are with your right arm and shoulder. One side might feel very different than the other, so honor that. Don't force anything, be kind. And then let's inhale our knees back up. Set your feet down if they're up, and let's extend our legs out long. So as you extend your legs out long, bring your right foot to the right corner of your mat and your left foot to your left corner of your mat. And then depending on what's going on in your shoulders, your arms will vary. So let's start by bringing your arms up, fingertips up toward the ceiling, and then check in and start to reach your arms so that your fingertips are going to go behind you and your arms are going to go by your ears. So for me, this is a little intense. You could go wider, have like a V shape with your arms. You could be cactus arms. We want our arms to come down. And so for me, cactus arms is more appropriate for a thing I have going on in my left shoulder. And then let's bring our left leg, slide it over next to the right. Both are long. Your torso is going to stay on the mat. If it feels okay, you'll start to shift your shoulders also over to the right. And adjust your arms in whatever is appropriate. If it's better for them to be down by your sides, out to your sides, up, in any variation, you do that. So we're side bending on the right side and opening up on the left side. So you might have room to go a little more. If you do, you pick your left foot and leg up and cross over your right. Keep your legs long. If that's too much, back off. And then here, really think about your breath in the left side of your body, in your left ribs, your intercostal muscles, your left side body. We're in our crescent shape, also called banana asana. Let's come back to center. So legs wide, arms in whatever position is going to work for you. And then slide your right leg to meet your left. Start to scooch your shoulders over to the left. Check in. Adjust your arms. Notice if you'd like to bring your right leg over. Just because you'd like to doesn't mean you should, so try it. If it's too much, then adjust. And feel your breath on your right side of your body. Imagine you could breathe more on the right than on the left. And then let's start to come back to center, wherever your arms are comfortable, and you can be more in not having your feet as wide, your feet and legs as wide, just having your legs out long. My blocks are kind of in the way, they're touching my feet at the moment, so it's hard for me to relax there we go. All right, and then let's bend our knees, feet back to the mat, and roll over to your side. Just to bring yourself up, going to come into a tabletop on all fours. So if you'd like padding for your knees, get your blanket or towel and put that in the middle of your mat. We're going to do cat-cow and then move into a lunge. So we'll be on our knees for a little while. So if you need that padding, depends how long you can go without it. You can always add it, but know that that's where we're going. And then coming to tabletop. Spreading your fingers wide, starting with your wrists under your shoulders, and then making any adjustments that you might need to, even coming onto forearms. If you have blocks, you can have your forearm on your blocks. I do that sometimes when my wrist is bothering me. Knees under your hips. And let's move to our breath. So the next time you exhale, you're going to think about, imagine you have a tail, and you're going to tuck your tail as you round your back, concave your chest, allow your head and neck to come down. And then when you inhale, you're going to tilt your tail up, opening the vertebrae, opening your heart, slight lift in your head and neck. And go at your own breath. So that's a way that we can really be in the moment, present, find peace, is moving with our breath. So if I'm just doing cat-cow, however, and not really connecting with my breath, usually that means my mind is wandering. So just notice that for yourself. Whatever round you're in, it'll be your final round. So if you're still going, don't feel hurried or rushed, and once you're complete, you come back to tabletop. And then from here, we're going to come into a lunge. So I just had my blocks out of the way. I'm going to move them so that they're available to me. And let's step, actually I'm going to turn because I think that'll be easier for you to see me. Let's step our right foot forward to come into a lunge. So the back knee is going to stay down on the mat unless you need to have it up off of the mat. And then my blocks are supporting me. They're right under my shoulders. Any height is fine. Make sure that your knee is right above your heel. And your torso is long and your chest is open. So if you're like really down here, come up either on blocks or your hands on your thigh. And then we're going to transition. So I'm actually going to turn to the side because it'll be easier for you to see me. We're going to transition from our lunge into, adjust my blanket, into Hanumanasana or half Hanumanasana. So you're going to start to straighten your front leg, shift your blocks back and your hips back. If you don't have blocks, keep your hands at your hips. For me, this is very challenging and balanced, so I definitely curl my back toes under. I'm going to scooch my front foot a little forward, and I'm like trying to rub or like kind of scrape my heel on my mat to lengthen and move away. My toes are active. Whew. Definitely balanced. This is half splits, half Hanumanasana. Hanuman was a monkey who leapt over oceans. All right, let's come back into our lunge. And then bring that knee back. And then step your left foot forward to come into a lunge on that side. So make sure you're really connected with this front foot. If you're using blocks, make sure they're not like out here or too far forward. They're an extension of your arms. You can look at it as an extension of your arms or bringing the floor closer to you. So if your arms are really long, you wouldn't have them out here or forward. You'd have them right under your shoulders. Notice where you're feeling sensation. Is it intense? Can you breathe into that sensation, or do you need to let go a little bit? All right, we're going to transition. So I'm going to transition myself. You're going to start to shift your hips back. I'm curling my back toes under. I'm moving my blocks with me. You can have your hands at your hips. Starting to straighten the front leg. I'm going to scooch my heel onto the mat, like rubbing it on, like I'm trying to move it more forward, even though it won't go anymore. My foot is active. My breath is flowing. And we'll come back into that lunge for a moment here. And then you can set your blocks aside. Let's come back to our tabletop. We're going to set up for a downward facing dog. So if it's best for you not to do a dog, you could stay in your tabletop. You could come into a child's pose. You could come onto your forearms, shift your hips back, bring your head down. Lots of options. If there's something else you'd like to do, you're welcome to do it. So we start in tabletop, and then we step our hands one handprint forward, curl your toes under, lift your knees up, and then shift your hips back. So your fingers are spread nice and wide, and then we're going to move our thigh bones back, like moving them away from your hands. And your gaze is at your toes. Your neck is long. Your spine is long. So really reaching your sit bones up and away. And then from downward facing dog, we're going to come into Uttanasana, which is standing forward fold. You could walk your hands to your feet to your hands, or a combo of the two. I'm going to walk my hands back today. Be careful if you have a blanket in the middle of your mat, just so you don't trip on it. So in our Uttanasana, if you're really rounded and your arms are hanging, make an adjustment. If you have blocks or they're available, you can use your blocks. If you don't have blocks, have your hands on your shins, your thighs, or even your hips. It's okay to be in this higher half fold. Long spine as much as possible. Your knees can be bent, but still think about having that reach in your inner seams from your inner heel, your inner arch, up your inner seam to your groins. And if your hands are not at your hips, bring your hands to your hips. Lengthen, inhale, lengthening. On the exhale, let's lift ourselves up to standing. I'm just going to move back so that you can see me a little bit better. Stay on your mat. So coming into Tadasana, our mountain pose. So really connecting with your feet. So our goal with a lot of our poses is to root and rise. So if we're not connected with our feet, then it's harder to be connected with the upper body, to have the upper part of the body lift up and rise if we're not grounded and rooted in our feet. And that's in our life too, right? We need that. So that sense of feeling grounded, close to the earth, calm, we need all of those things. And if we can physically have them in our body, then it's going to help with the mind as well. It's fascinating. So really rooted here. You feel a little bit of a lift in your belly and open heart here in your Tadasana. And then we're just going to do what are called sun breaths. So you're going to reach through your fingertips. When you inhale, start to reach up. And all I'm doing is reaching my fingertips up toward the ceiling. I'll come down so that you can see. And then as I exhale, I reach back down. So you stay standing and have that connection with your feet. As you inhale, you reach up. As you exhale, you reach down. One more round to your own breath. Inhaling up. Exhale down. Nice. All right. And then we're going to reach our arms forward and then reach our arms up. You're still standing in your mountain pose, your Tadasana. Now I'm going to turn just so you can see me from the side. So we're going to come into a heart opener. So you're going to think about the back of your heart. So lower tips of your shoulder blades is where you're going to start to lift and open. Most of us won't go very far. If you're doing this, then you're definitely in your back and your neck. And see how my voice changed? So let's really think about that lift happening from behind your heart center to come into your baby back bend. And then let's come back up. You're still in Tadasana mountain pose and reach your arms out to the side. Have your palms face forward. We're going to come into a twist. So the twist starts in your belly button. Your hips will be basically square. They might shift a little bit, but I don't want you to turn your hips, but letting it naturally happen. Arms stay right here at the side. So think about the twist starting from your belly button, twisting to the left, your belly button, your upper belly, your chest, and a little bit of your shoulders. And then your head and neck can be wherever is comfortable. So don't force it to go to look over to the left. Have it natural. And then let's inhale back to center. And when we exhale, let's twist to the right. So the twist starts at your belly button. And my hips are shifting slightly, but I'm not turning them. I'm just allowing it to be a natural movement in my body. And then come back up or forward. And then arms down. And ooh, I need some shoulder rolls. That was a lot of work. Whew. All right, we're going to come to the top of our mat. Stand up at the top of your mat. I'm just not quite at the top because I have a wall here. I know where we're going. So I want to make sure that I don't bonk into the wall in a little bit when we move to that. So coming to that grounded, that rooting to rise. Hands at your hips. You're going to lean your weight just a little bit into your left foot and leg, and you're going to step your right foot back. We're coming onto the ball of the back foot. Your heel is up off the mat because we're coming into a lunge. If that's absolutely not okay, then you can have your foot on the mat. You're in a little bit different pose. We do want to challenge our balance here. So you just do your best. You really think about that rooting and then that rising to be tall, to be fairly stable. So we're going to come into a crescent high lunge. Typical arms are up by your ears, just that same way that we were reaching up. But maybe you want to have your arms out to the side, cactus at your heart or even at your hips. Your knee is right above your heel, so make sure it's not forward of it. That's where we can hurt ourselves or we're weight bearing here, so it's really important. I'm going to bring my arms up because now we're going to hinge at our hip creases to come into a forward fold while we're in this lunge. So you just do your best. As you wiggle, as you wobble, maybe you fall out of this pose. Keep breathing, finding peace in this moment. Inhale back up. Exhale, arms down. Step your back foot in a little bit. So we're going to play with some balance here. I know we already just did some balance, and we're going to do a little bit more. So you really think about rooting through that front foot because the back foot might come off the mat. So maybe you just kind of shift onto your big toe. Maybe you lift and set it down. Maybe you come more into a variation of warrior two. So we want our hips to be square, our hips and our chest to be square, whether that's more upright or more down towards your mat. Your arms can be wherever is going to help you with your balance. And your leg, if your right leg is up off of the mat, your right foot off the mat, then you're really active here. So you're really reaching, rooting, rising. How do we bring that calm and that balance to our body and our mind? And then let's step our foot to meet our left foot. Whew. Maybe you need to do a little wiggle, what I call the Tadasana swing, where you swing your arms one direction and the opposite heel picks up. All right, we're going to shift to the other side. I'm just going to turn so you can see me better. I have more room here. So really rooting through my feet so that I can stand tall. Hands at my hips. Lean into your left foot and leg your right foot and leg as you step your left foot back. And if you kind of get stuck, you can always do extra steps. Sometimes we step too far. So check in with that. Check in with your front knee. Make sure it's really strong and rooted, really rooted. There we go. So that's helping me, especially because this back leg and foot is not as rooted because the whole foot's not on the mat, to help me lift up here. And then your arms can come up by your ears or any variation to be in your crescent. Your upper belly and chest is facing the same direction as your front foot, and actually the same direction as your back foot. And then let's come into that forward fold. So I'm going to bring my arms back up by my ears, but wherever you have yours is fine. We're going to hinge, so we want to keep our torso long, still balancing. That front leg is working, supporting us. Let's inhale back up. Exhale, hands back to your hips. Step your back foot in a little bit. And let's play with our balance. So remember that this side is very different from the first side. So maybe you won't even get your back foot up off the mat. Maybe you'll fall over immediately. Just be okay with wherever you are. Keeping your hips square. So if you're really opening up, you really want to come here because we're in Warrior 3. Rooting, like I can really press to that foot and it actually helps to lift me a little higher. And then bring your left foot to meet your right foot. You can give it a shake. You can do the Tadasana swing. Nice. Whew. All right. We're going to make our way back into a downward facing dog if that's okay for you. So before you do it, if you're already in it, hold on. How do you want to get into it? How do you want to move? So we want to take our time moving into our poses. So there's a few ways you could do it. You could come from a forward fold, right? And then step into your dog. You could come from a tabletop and then step into your dog. You also have the option to not do it. You could come from a plank pose, that's a lot more intense, and then shift back. So you decide how you get there. You make sure that you're lengthening in your spine. Your knees can be bent. If I bend my knees, I can actually shift my hips higher and farther back. And then I work to straighten my legs. And I'm not just straightening them, I'm thinking about moving my thigh bones back, moving my heels down toward the mat. We're going to come forward into a plank pose. You can stay here. You can come onto your knees, your forearms. I'm going to shift forward, making sure that my shoulders are right above my wrists or elbows if I'm on my forearms. And there's no sway back, right? I'm really lifting up here. And I'm thinking about my tailbone. Remember when cat-cow? Reaching my tailbone toward my heels. And then bring your knees down and come all the way onto your belly. Whew. Crocodile pose. You can stack your palms and rest your forehead, your chin, your cheek. Whew. That's a baby back bend, so you could totally stay right there. I'm going to shift just so that you can see the front a little easier as I set up these poses we're going to do. You can always stay right where you are. If you want to do a little more, let's bring our hands under our shoulders, elbows close to our sides. You have your chin or your forehead on the mat. Pressing the tops of your toenails into the mat. You're not curling your toes under. Pressing the tops of your knees, lifting your belly toward your spine. And then let's peel our chest up off the mat, keeping your neck long. And then see if you can bring your shoulder blades down onto your rib cage in your cobra pose. Next exhale, come on down. Resting the best way for you. You're welcome to wiggle out your hips. You could bend your knees and do some windshield wipering. You're welcome to stay in your variation of crocodile, do another cobra, or set up for a variation of cobra. So we'll start with our hands under our shoulders. We want to keep our hands in alignment of our shoulders, but just bring them wider. It's almost like we've got spider fingers and spider arms here. Same foundation, feet, knees, belly, and then we inhale up. You won't come as high. And then we'll exhale down. And inhale up. And exhale down. Go in your own breath. Last one, inhale up. Hold it if that's okay. If it's not, come back down on your exhale. Keeping your neck long, so make sure your chin's not jutting forward. Nice and long. And then next exhale, let's come down. Resting the best way for you. Give those hips a wiggle or a windshield wiper if that would feel good. Help you to release. You're welcome to stay in your crocodile. or transition into a child's pose or some variation. So knees go wide, your big toes touch or come close together, and you sit back on your heels. So that's where that could be an issue, so be mindful of that. Draping your torso over your thighs, resting your forehead on your hands, your fists, your blocks, or the mat. You can also roll over onto your side and hug your knees into your chest. In a moment, you're going to come up. But again, how do you want to transition from the pose you're in, whether it's child's pose, crocodile, on your back, some other variation, to come back up to standing? So take your time, honor where you need to be right now, where you need to be physically, mentally, with your breath, with your heart. And then we'll make our way up to standing. Back to Tadasana. I'm just stepping off my mat so you can see me better. So coming back to that connection, the base of our standing poses are mountain pose, rooting so that we can rise. And then let's step our feet wide. Rotate your right foot and leg 90 degrees. Your back heel kicks back slightly, toes in a little. And we're going to really think about pressing through those feet and then bend your front knee. Not going past your ankle. Upper belly and chest turn toward the long edge of your mat. I did forget to tell you to be on the long edge of your mat. That's helpful. And then thinking about, like, if you kind of have your hands on your mid-ribs to turn, and then opening your arms out. If you need to adjust in any way, you do that. Warrior 2. And then bring your arms down, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet, setting up for the second side. So really pressing through your feet as you bend your front knee, making sure it's in a good safe spot, that it's not falling in. So you've got to externally rotate. So you can imagine aiming it toward the second and third toe. Upper belly and chest, strong arms. You decide where your gaze goes. Typically over your front middle finger, but I say you do what's best for your neck. And if you notice that you're kind of forward, see if you can lift yourself up. That rooting to help you rise up, to lift out of your pelvis. And then bring your arms down, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet. You're going to stay here. Let's go back to the first side. Right foot and leg 90 degrees. Back heel kicks back. Step your back foot in a little bit. So you're a little bit shorter. We're going to, again, play with balance. A variation of Ardha Chandrasana or half moon pose. So typically I need a block for this pose. You might need a wall. If you really want to use something, you use it. But let's try to play with it without that. So it's not going to look the same or feel the same. So bottom hand is reaching down. And then maybe you're here with your toe on the mat and you're just lifting your heel up. Maybe you start to lift your toe. Maybe you start to lift your leg, straighten your front leg, open your hips up. Ooh, it's a lot harder without support underneath. So just giving that a little bit of play. Breathing. So this might feel chaotic, right? I'm not holding it still. So find peace in that moment. Calm with your breath. If it's easier for you to keep your hips more closed, you can. And then let's bring that foot to join the other foot. Taking a moment in your Tadasana, wherever you are, doesn't matter what direction you're facing. And then we'll go to the second side. So feet don't have to be as wide as Warrior 2. Legs. Have your left foot and leg rotate that 90 degrees. And then just kind of adjust your back foot. It can be a little shorter. We're turning initially so that we're facing our front foot. And then we're going to bend our front knee a little bit and we'll start to play, whether it's just heel, toe, maybe start to come in more. Gaze wherever's going to help you. I feel like this helps with my balance, keeping my bottom arm like really reaching, but maybe there's a better place for you. Maybe your hips. And as you get topsy-turvy, start falling over, Okay, really root through that standing foot and that standing leg. And then when you feel complete, you step your feet back together, back into your mountain pose. And let's do that Tadasana swing if you want to just wiggle out or march or just be still. Please do that. Awesome. All right. We're going to make our way back down onto our mat. So we're going to come into constructive rest, a bridge pose, and then Shavasana. So I will show you set up for bridge with a blanket and with a block. So when I say blanket, that also means your towel, whatever you might have. So let's just first come to lie down. When I lie down in constructive rest, I really like a blanket under my head, but once we come into bridge pose, I have to move that. And you have to move it as well. It's not just me. It's a safety thing to make sure we keep the natural curve of our neck. So this just gives us a moment, right, to come back to our breath, our body. If you felt that was a little chaotic, my breath is pretty, a little shallow, a little quick. So this gives us a moment to connect back with all of that. To notice our breath. When we balance, we forget to notice our breath. Sometimes we forget to breathe too. And in balance work, we're concentrating so hard, but it's not really about concentrating, but that's where many of us go. So we just notice that. It's okay if you went there. I'm teaching and balancing, so I'm concentrating very, very hard. So maybe you've already noticed your breath is starting to slow down. You feel your shoulders, your hips, your back, your feet, your head connecting with your mat once again. We're closer to the earth. Might feel a little more rooted, a little more calm. I'm going to set up for a bridge pose. So I'm going to move my blanket. I'm going to show you set up with a blanket and with a block. So either one, we start in constructive rest. It's just kind of placement of the prop is a little different. And I press my feet into the mat to lift up and bring the support under me. So a blanket or a towel is typically wider than a block, so it can support your hips and your low back. So this is supporting my hips and my sacrum, my pelvis. If you have a block, slightly different. So the block doesn't support your low back. And if you put it under your low back, you would see why. It does not feel good. So we lift up and we slide our support under, right under your hips. So like thinking about right below where a belt would go. You're opening your heart. You're allowing the block to do the work for you so that your body can benefit from a bridge pose, but in a supported way. Your shoulder blades are wide on your mat. Your collarbones are really open and wide, so your heart is open and wide. Your head is slightly below your heart, so this is an inversion, like downward facing dog is an inversion. You're welcome to stay here for your Shavasana. This is a nice way to practice. Or you can come out. I'm going to lift my hips up and move my support out of the way and then just connect. I have to make a little adjustment. My spine starts to feel like it gets a little longer. And then I like support under my head. So for these classes, I do a short Shavasana. I recommend a much longer Shavasana. So if you have time, you want to do a longer one, you could pause, do your Shavasana, set a timer on your phone, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then come back and join the end of the class. Or you do the 2-minute Shavasana. So you could stay in constructive rest. I typically widen my feet and bring my knees together. You could extend your legs out long. If you have another blanket or some cushions or pillows, you could put that under your knees to support you, and you want your body to be relaxed. I automatically press through my heels, and instead I want to be relaxed. So you'll set up your Shavasana. I'm going to do that reading again for you. So I won't stay in Shavasana for this portion of the class, but allow yourself to really breathe, to be connected, to come back to that calm. Maybe this is a place where you feel really safe. I know you're not physically practicing with me, but in my classes, I always want my students to feel safe, to feel welcome, and to feel loved. So know that even though it's virtual, some of my YouTube students I know and some I don't, but know that you're safe with me, that I care about you, that I love you, and I want this to be a safe place for you to come over and over with me. So allow that to be for you. And also know that you can come back to this feeling, this sensation of calmness, of love, of safety, right? You don't have to actually be practicing yoga. You can be here in this moment. So coming back to the idea of expansion and contraction with your breath. To preserve openness of heart and calmness of mind, nurture these attitudes. Kindness to those who are happy. Compassion for those who are less fortunate. Honor for those who embody noble qualities. Equanimity to those whose actions oppose your values. Here we are offered 4 priceless keys that, if used in conjunction with the correct locks, open portals that enable us to retain our inner peace in all circumstances. The greatest challenge is to remember that we hold the keys to our own peace. Deepen your breath. Keeping that idea of calm, quiet, grounded, rooted. You feel ready to start to make some movements in your body. Start small. You will take your time to transition from Shavasana back into a seat, honoring where you need to be, what you need to do to get there. Once you are seated, ensure that you're sitting well, whether on a prop, on your mat, that you can sit tall, you can sit well. We'll bring our hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Seal our practice together. Keep peace in your mind, keep strength in your body, and keep love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Make sure that you honor yourself, you love yourself, you be kind to yourself. Always, but most especially today. You're welcome to comment below about anything. If you have questions, you can contact me. My email is therealgofitgirl@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter as GoFitGirl and Instagram as TheRealGoFitGirl. I did want to mention that I typically post my videos on Fridays, and then if you follow me on social media on Saturdays on social media, I alert people to it, but I know some of you subscribe so you know when they go up. So I typically do Fridays, which this video will go up on October 30th, but I'm also going to do a special class on Monday, November 2nd. My goal was to actually teach a live free class on Tuesday, November 3rd, but because of work and some volunteering I'm doing at a polling station, it's just not going to happen. So I still want to provide yoga for you. So there'll be an extra class kind of ish this week that'll be posted on Monday. So look for that. If you need some extra yoga in the next few days, know that that will be there. Also, if you're interested in taking a live class with me, I'm doing a special class on this Sunday, November 1st. At 2 p.m. Pacific. It's an hour of restorative yoga. If you're interested, email me at therealgofitgirl@gmail.com and I'll get you signed up. It's a donation-based class, so no need to pay if you can't afford. You pay what you can afford. So if you can't, I want you to come. That's also my gift to my students, whether students I know in person in the past who've been coming to my weekly virtual classes or my students who come to YouTube. So please know that I want to provide as much yoga as I can for you right now in these chaotic, trying times. So be kind to yourself, love yourself, be kind to others, love others, and I hope to practice with you again soon.